Just going back and forth between Teams and Zoom, so I had to find my controls. Thank you.
Yep, so I'm gonna make you co-host so you can record, and we can get started.
All right, well, first of all, it's fun for me to see so many people showing up. Let me, just again, I'm used to the other platform, make sure I have things up and going. And we will get started. And I'm not seeing my PowerPoint. Are you seeing my PowerPoint now by any chance?
You're not.
Sure. It is not coming up as an option. Let's see. There we go. And then Evan, once we do get started, since once I'm in presentation mode, I can't see chat things. If people have questions, please let me know.
Yep, I believe we have peer mentors monitoring the chat as well.
Great.
So they will be doing
all right.
that.
Well, we'll jump in. As Evan said, I'm Mark Eisenberg. I'm an industry navigator with Classroom to Career Hub. I also oversaw internships on campus for about 6 years. So I'm just here to help you with some basics about internships at MSU. So I want to start off by asking you what you hope to learn today. What are some of the questions you have coming in? Just call them out, unmute yourself, feel free, or add them to the chat. Any? Okay, I'll keep moving. So why do you want an internship? Some of you out there, hopefully you're here today because you're interested in internships. Why are you looking at internships? Again, just feel free to unmute yourself or add it to the chat.
Hello, my name is Nalinda Kajunju. The answer to that question is I would like an internship because I would like to see a firsthand experience on what it's like to work in an industry that I'm getting my degree in. Like there's things that you're, taught in a book, but I really would like to see like what a day in a life of that in that career.
That's great. What field are you going into?
Computer information systems. So right now I'm learning about databases and data mining and warehousing. That's really interesting. And also I'm really enjoying my system design and how that all works and, how to ascertain the information from customers to be able to design an information system that works for them.
All right, thank you. Someone else willing to share? Thank you for that.
We also have a few comments in the chat.
Great.
For the last question, Jaya said she just wants to learn the basics on getting an internship and work experience. Danny commented that she would like to provide information to students who may be interested in getting an internship later in their academic journey. She's one of our peer mentors. Okay. To answer why do you want an internship, Haley said she would like to be more likely to be hired by getting an internship. And Sabrina commented that she was supposed to start an internship but was unable to because of COVID this semester.
Well, remind me if I don't to talk about that. So yeah, you've hit a bunch of the ones I would say. But I like to start at this top one to explore, because some people think of as internships as something they do right before they graduate, when they've got everything figured out. Well, what if internships could help you figure that out? What if you're not quite sure of the field you want to go in, or even in the field you're interested in, there's more than one option, right? What if we used internships to explore those and we started sooner and did more than one? And now when we graduate, we're not coming into a field still kind of hoping it's the right fit for us. We've got a direction based on experience. So I really like to encourage people to think of internships as a chance to explore. The other thing, our first person who chimed in said, yeah, practical experience, that firsthand experience. And I'll also point out, I've hired in 4 different industries, and the first one I came out in was broadcasting. I needed to see professional work samples, and you can present projects from class, and that's okay, but it's sure different if you say, I did this design, I did this video, I did this story for a professional entity. So getting that practical experience, that hands-on experience, and those samples is great. I also like to hit on this. I want you to experience professional standards on professional deadlines. Because you've kind of gotten in a mode in school of, oh, let's have this next week or by the end of the month or the end of the semester. Often when you get into the office, those deadlines are a lot faster and the standards are higher. And it's just a chance to get exposed to some of those expectations before you graduate. And it's a way of gearing up, of seeing what it's like. Also, networking is huge. You have a chance to meet and work with people in the industry you want to be in. And those connections may lead to opportunities down the road. So the networking element of it is very important. Plus, I would strongly encourage anybody who gets an internship, the first few weeks, just work your tail off, show them your good work ethic and you're there for them. But definitely reach out to the people at your internship and ask them about their journey and their advice and what they'd say to someone graduating these days, and really get that added value. And then mentorship. You may find that after the internship, you got a good relationship with someone who continues to mentor you in your career. And those are all great things that can come out of an internship. And then this is what someone else just said, and to be more employable. I just think most fields these days need the degree and experience. I talk to students often, and I've run into this myself when I've been hiring, and say, well, I need the job to get experience. And they'll say, well, you need experience to get the job. And it can be kind of confusing. If you just know that going in, that I need to graduate with a degree and some internships or some practicum or some other experiences, you're just going to be so much more employable. Here's the way I like to put it. Let's just say all of you there today, you're the hiring committee. And you've got 100 applicants for an entry-level job. And by the way, that's not unusual. There'd be 100, 200 more. This is just based on my experience. This isn't a studies. Don't quote me on these, but I'll just give you a rough idea based on my experience. Out of those 100, you'll have maybe 20% or so that have a degree and no experience. And you'll have 60, 65, 70% that have the degree and 1 internship. And you got 10 to 20 who have the degree and 2 or 3 or 4 internships. You're the hiring committee. You can't interview 100 people. Where are you going to start? I bet you're starting with the people with the experience, right? So turn that around. And if you know that going in and you're going to be applying for jobs soon, make sure you get at least 1, and preferably in my book, more than 1. But get those experiences that help you and show that you're ready for the field. One more thing, this is just one example, and I've got a bunch I could share with you. Eva Price is someone who graduated a few years ago. She had several internships, I think it was 3 or 4, that helped her decide what she wanted to do. And this is a quote from her. She got to learn about the profession she was entering, and she got to learn about the people who did what she wanted to do. I mean, these are all great things. How many of you would like to meet people in the field you want to go into? How many of you would like to try it on before you commit your career to it and get experience and see if that's really a good fit for you? I'm guessing most of you would. So these are all great reasons, and she got to do that. By the way, this study that I'm quoting here is a few years ago, so it might not be perfect for now, but it's going to be close. Roughly a third of our internships result in full-time offers. And if that doesn't sound like much, please keep in mind that some people do them when they're juniors. Some people, as I'm encouraging you, do more than one. It's not right before they graduate. Some people are in fields where they need to really start in a smaller town or such. So I think that third was actually higher than I expected. But look at that next stat. 88% of the students we sent the survey to said that their internships were very helpful or helpful in preparing for their career. So hope I've convinced you all. Any doubters yet? Right? They have you on board that this is a good thing for you to do. Hope I've got you. So let me go over some basics, because one of you said you just want to know some of the basics. So one, we want to make clear that MSU doesn't hand you an internship. You need to find one, and then you apply for credit for it. but we're going to support you in that effort. We're going to give you the tools. We're going to give you hints. We're going to give you suggestions to go find that internship. And then you're going to apply for credit for it. So just to be clear, we don't give them to you. You need to go find them. This is also part of that old adage, if you've heard, if you give someone a fish, they eat for a day. You teach them to fish, they eat for a lifetime. If we just hand you the internship, you haven't learned the job hunting skills and all the things that go into getting a job. We want you to take all the skills you're going to get out of this internship search and apply it to the next one, and apply it to your job search and apply it to the one after that. So we're hoping you're going to get all that. Here's another basic. You've got to know your department's requirements. So every department's a little different. So find out if they have certain requirements or measurements before you can take an internship. It might be GPA. Some will require a 2.5 or a 3.0. Just find out. Some don't have that requirement. Find out for your department. They may want a certain class standing. They may prefer seniors, or they may allow juniors, or they may allow any class standing. Find out. Some may have prerequisite courses. I've found for the departments that do have prerequisites, they're usually a 2000 level. So if you find out that, so sometimes I hear students say down the road or when they're closer to graduating, no, let's start early. Because if we tell freshmen and sophomores that this is out there, maybe they find out what that prereq course is and take it as soon as they can so they're eligible to do this exploration and get this experience. Some will be specific about the duties of an internship or the supervisor's qualifications. For instance, it should be for any field that if you're interning, your supervisor is a professional in the same field. Now that may sound obvious, but let me give you a couple examples. I just got a request from a business who wants a videography student to come do videos for them because they don't know how to do that. That's not a good fit for the student. Now they will say, well, you're going to get experience. Yeah, but they're not going to get the training. They're not going to get the added incentive to get better. Imagine taking a class without a faculty member. Imagine if any of you have been in athletics of doing a sport without a coach. We want you to get that added coaching, training, learning. So we want you to have someone who's qualified in the same field that you're hoping to go into. Find out how many hours they want per credit. So it's going to be 45 or 50. And again, some of the departments just vary on this. But let's go with 50 because I think most of them are that. And most internships are 3 credits. So that's going to require 150 hours. Now, if you're like most students at Metro, you work. So you're already trying to make room for these classes. You're working and going to school. And now you got to do this internship. So how much time is that going to take? Well, 3 credits at 50 hours of credit is 150. What does that mean? Over the course of a semester like fall or spring, 15 weeks, 10 hours a week. I know that's not nothing, but hopefully that's manageable. And then over summer, it's a shorter semester. So you may have to get 15 or 20 hours a week. So keep that in mind as you're planning ahead. Maybe you want to plan a semester that's not as demanding, work with your bosses for some flexibility. But as you're trying to figure out how to make all of this work in your busy schedules, 10 to 15 hours a week. And then deadlines. Your department may want your internship in place when classes start. Or they may say, well, at the latest by census. Some will let you do it any time, but those hours don't change. So even if they're flexible, for instance, I have a couple of departments that would still let you register for an internship for fall right now, but you'd still have 150 hours to get in before the first week of December. So keep all that in mind, find out what those are, and do the planning. One more thing I'll say about it when we're on the basics, and I'll probably say it another time or two. This is a process. You don't sign up for this like a class and you can do it before classes start. You need time to search and get your resume together and interview and get accepted and then do your application. Start about a semester ahead, if not more. So for credit, and by the way, I'm going to ask again those helping, if a question comes up while I'm talking, you just interrupt me. So internship credit. For credit, you need to fill out application for academic credit, just what it sounds like. That should be completed before you begin work on your internship. Don't assume you can receive credit. Again, I just went over all those parameters and things that might come up with the department. So you're going to be applying and saying, here's what I'm doing, here are all the steps, and they're going to let you know if they'll give you credit for that. There's an important note about paid versus unpaid. I know everyone would rather have a paid internship, but there are some great experiences out there that are unpaid, but you're learning a lot about the field. You're learning things, getting the experience that are going to help you get a job. So here are the quick things about paid versus unpaid. If it's unpaid, a university rule is it has to be for credit. Now, paid can be for credit or not. Why wouldn't you want credit? Well, maybe in your major or your graduation plan, having, especially if you're following my advice of 2 or 3 internships, that second internship may not help your graduation plan. Well, if it's paid, you don't have to take it for credit. You can treat it as a part-time job. We do suggest you tell us about it because we can put a note in your graduation plan. It'll be there on your transcript. We can also do some tracking and help you out in other ways. So definitely tell us, but unpaid needs to be for credit. Paid, you can take credit or not. Basically, your academic department has the final say on whether you're eligible. So before applying, you can make sure you qualify. So now that we know that we want to do this, how do we get started? I have so many students who say, yeah, it's a great idea. I just don't know how to start. Well, let's start by researching your industry. Which industries or companies interest you? And when you find an industry, find out the companies in our area that do what you want to do. Further look into that company and see what kind of entry-level jobs there are in that industry. But that's where you're most likely going to be started. And if all of that still sounds interesting to you, see if they offer internships. By the way, if you don't see internships, but you do see entry-level jobs, the descriptions are usually similar. So you can kind of get an idea of what they'd expect of an intern by looking at an entry-level job. As you're doing this research and you're looking into the industry and the companies and the jobs, start to look at the skills and experiences they require. You're going to have a job description just like a job for an internship. They may want to know you can use certain computer software. They may want to know you have certain writing ability or editing ability. Well, find that out. In fact, write it down. I suggest creating what I call a skills survey, and I'm going to show you an example in just a moment. But you're going to break things into what they want that you have and things they want that you don't yet have, but you're going to. All right, and that's just a good way of measuring. So here's what that can look like. And
I also have 2 questions in the chat. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. No, that's great.
Danny had a comment. She said in the education field, she's been told that even though she doesn't need internships, that students should still look into them to gain some experience and mentors and network.
Yes. So my understanding is education actually has practicums built into the graduation plan that as part of their last year, if not last 2 years. And it's just not a field I'm as familiar with, or I could be very specific. They put them in the classrooms, and that is one where they may actually place you because it's so integrated into the curriculum and you need that classroom time. So make sure to talk to the people in the department. And I'll be surprised if they don't have something set up for you to be in the classroom now. In today's world, everything remote, it'll probably be a remote classroom. But that is definitely a part of that. And yes, encourage you to look into that requirement and find out just when and how to do it. And if there's anything you need to do to be eligible for those practicums or those classroom placements.
Thank you. And Vera also had a question. Would an
Sure.
internship be the same as job shadowing?
They're a little different, and I am going to go into that, but I'll go ahead and explain now since you asked. Shadowing is usually much more short-term and, in fact, could be part of a day, where an internship would be 2 or 3 days a week for a semester. So shadowing is a great way to quickly sample different things, get a taste for it, just shadow someone for 2 or 4 hours. All day is a little weird, but some people will do that for you. You get a chance to see what the office is like, meet some other people, see what kind of tasks and duties they do. So I really am a big fan of shadowing. And it's a good way to, even before the internship, try out different options.
Thank you so much for answering those questions for us.
Sure, thanks for interrupting. So here's an example of that skill survey. And you can just build this as a table in a Word document or use an Excel spreadsheet or whatever you like. But it's quite simple. As you start to see these job or internship listings, make a 2-column list and write down on the left side what they want that you have. And on the right side, write down what they want that you need. And I like to think of that need not as a negative, but great information to have so you know what you need to do. I have so many students who come to me and they say, well, Mark, I just don't know what they're going to want from me. Here's a way to find out. Start to read job descriptions, write it down. Hey, here's what they want. And I already have these and I need these. And I would encourage you, for anything you have, make it stronger, make it better. And anything you don't have, talk to your professors about what classes coming up may offer those skills, do internships to get those skills, find additional learning if you need to. But this is a great way, instead of guessing or hoping that you're learning everything you need, to find out if you're getting the skills that those employers are going to want from you. And coming up, this is going to help you in your resume. So we've done our research, we've looked for some openings we want to apply. We're going to need to do a resume. And I'll just start off by saying, first of all, resume styles and approaches vary. And you could ask 5 different people and get 5 different versions of how your resume should look. I know in some ways that's frustrating, but actually be reassured that it's not math, it's not 2 + 2 is 4, and we have no way around it. There are different approaches to this. Here's the most important thing. Does it effectively represent your skills and experience? Does it show you're ready for the job? Make it clear, concise, and error-free, and you're probably off to a good start. I wouldn't get too fancy, but again, some of these things are even industry specific. For instance, I work with design students. They have to have a portfolio. And there's a resume page on it, but it's more about, here are my designs. Industrial design, engineering are the same way. Journalism and video, you have to show your articles or show the videos you made. So make sure you know what's expected in your area. But for the most part, I'm going to give you a basic approach to resumes in just a minute. And the thing I'll emphasize is to front load your relevant skills. And what do I mean by that? Well, again, 80% of MSU students work. I bet most of you on this call today work. And you had to have a resume to get that job. Now for me, I waited tables going through school. I had a great restaurant resume. That's not the one I wanted to show the journalism outlets, right? That's not going to get me my internship, let alone a job. We would flip your resume around a little bit and make sure to emphasize, well, you're studying journalism, you're studying engineering, or you're studying biology, and you've taken these classes and you've done these projects. By the way, a quick note here that I'll go into more later, rather than just list the programs you can use, show what you can do with them. We want to demonstrate measurable results. Well, what do we mean by that? Well, if you supervised a certain number of people, put the number of people. If you came up with a process improvement that got results, show that. There's ways to show measurable results, and we want to do that whenever we can. And when it comes to the other work you've done, we're not leaving that off. That's important. You've learned a lot from that. But we want to focus on the transferable skills from unrelated work, whether that was customer service, problem solving, management skills, all those things. And we want to focus on that. So here's a basic outline for the resume. And the reason I put the asterisk on the title is, again, there's more than one approach to it. And depending on where you are and if I were helping you, I might give different advice to different people on this phone call. Not because don't know what I'm doing or it's all guesswork. It's just depending on your experience and what you're applying to, we'd want a different approach. But this is a really good start. So we would start with a header. And if you don't know what that is, that's just your name and your contact information. So your name, your phone, your email. Used to put the street address there a lot, but that's when a lot of communication was via snail mail. And so we don't do that as much anymore. Your phone and your email are probably sufficient. We want to then start with a skills section. And this goes back to that little skills survey we just did. We want to start off with, I've got what you need. I read your job description and you wanted this program and this experience and this skill, and I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. Then we can go into education. So again, with the example I gave you, waiting tables, I'm not going to start off with, and I'm waiting tables right now at the Hilton downtown. I'm going to start off with, I'm studying journalism, and I've already written these stories. We're going to put in your related coursework. Then we can follow that up because we're front loading all the relevant stuff. They don't care that I'm waiting tables right now. They want to know that I'm studying journalism. So I'm studying journalism. I took these classes, but I also these projects and experience. I worked on the school paper. I wrote some articles for class. We're going to front load all that so we show them you're learning the skills to be ready for this great experience. And in fact, I have a little note here that if that experience is strong, I even suggest putting it after skills but before education, especially if you've already got your first internship. Hey, I've got these skills you want, and I've already done it for this company, and I'm studying it, and I'm taking great classes, and I know what it's like to hold a job. Is this starting to make sense? Then yes, we put your unrelated work experience, and we're highlighting those transferable skills, any supervision, accomplishments. Those are all great things to add from unrelated work. And then sometimes it's nice at the bottom to just put awards, hobbies, community involvement. A lot of you here are in the peer group. That's great to add. In fact, I wouldn't even put that at the bottom. I'd put it higher up. And just other activities. It's just a little nice thing about you. Any questions about this before I move on? And I'm going to grab some water.
I don't see any questions in the chat so far.
I appreciate that. So there's a way to strengthen your skills section, and I'm going to talk about a couple of things at once, but here you have a typical header for a resume, and you'll see that this person has their phone and email. They also put on a LinkedIn profile, and they have a portfolio of their work. So if you're in a portfolio field, we definitely want to link to that in your resume. But right off the top is their skills section. So remember, I mentioned you'd look at things that were wanted in your industry, and this is for a public relations student. And you can probably imagine for your field, like we just heard from that CIS student talking about data networks and things, what do they need? And so this person says, I've done social media marketing. I've worked with these social media platforms. I know AP style, which if you were in the field, you know what that meant. And I've used these programs, and I also know photography and planning. That's not bad, and there are some cases I would suggest you use this approach. But I want to take this chance to show you a way to already start to strengthen that. So if you remember what we just had on that last page, this is what I call a contextual bullet. It puts that skill into a context. So instead of just listing a program or a skill, we put a little more of a framework around it. So the first one, instead of social media marketing, says create web content and social media posts as part of a social media marketing strategy. It's much stronger, it's more complete. Instead of just listing those social networks, we say experience maintaining these social media accounts. Instead of just AP style, I can write and edit to AP style. Now, if you did that with everything, it would get kind of long. So I'd encourage you to pick the top ones, the most important ones, and do this contextual approach. But then if you need to just list some, okay, we listed Hootsuite, MailChimp, WordPress. Now, photographer, experienced photographer, what does that mean? I often see people, and you've probably seen this on a resume, experienced, proficient, expert, qualified. What does that mean? And according to whose measure? I think you're better, rather than using what I call these fuzzy terms, these kind of business speak terms, just be specific about what you've done. So this person, instead of just experienced photographer, put for news, social media, and art uses.
Excuse me, Mark, may I interrupt you when you get a moment?
Sure, let me finish these two and I'll answer them. So for news, social media, and art, 3 distinct styles. I know this is a flexible and competent photographer. And instead of just planning events for 20 to 100 people, I have an idea of what kind of scale event this person can handle. So anyway, this is much more complete. Quick note before I take the question. Even if at a resume we want to use the shorter version at the top, this is the approach I really encourage you to take under the job description. Okay, what's the question?
So like, I guess my question is, what if, are you supposed to include all of your working experience? So I did, similar to you, waited tables and did a lot of different managing and supervising things. But after coming to school, I've actually held like a decent amount of positions on campus. And I just don't know at what point do I stop including some of my restaurant experience if like I've been working for around like over 10 years. Like how do,
Yeah, so,
like,
some of that may
how
fall
do I
off.
scrunch, do I need to include everything, or can I use my relevant job experience that I've gotten since I started MSU in 2018?
That's a great question. And some people come to us with 20-year careers, and they come to that. You've seen, we have the non-traditional student, right? People who started work and then come back. So great question. I'm glad you asked. I'd really want to sit down with you individually. But let me try the short thing. Anything that's relevant, we're including. If it's not relevant, but it's your work history, I'd say at some point you cut it off. When I applied here, I didn't put every job I ever had, and I didn't have the waiting tables because I had had a lot of journalism experience, video production experience, a lot of supervision. So when it comes to that work experience, we use what's called reverse chronology. And what does that mean? It means your current job is first, and then the job before that, and the job before that, and the job before that. So whatever you're doing now definitely gets into that resume. And then what you did before and did before. And we will get to a point where we measure just how long it is versus the worth of including it. Generally, for a lot of students, 1 page is enough. But if you have 20 years of experience and it has some value, we can maybe justify putting another page on there. For me, you notice the gray hair. I have more than 20 years of experience. I have a 2-page resume, but I still don't include everything. So I hope that helps a little bit. There just comes a point where you make that value judgment of, okay, I've got enough and I've got the most relevant things. Because keep this in mind. If you've been on that journey like you did with waiting tables and then working in education, and maybe you're going into higher ed or something else, at some point, you lose the interest of the viewer or the reader. If you get all that stuff they care about up front, and then give them enough other stuff to show some experience and some depth and some variety in your work, then we've probably done our job.
We also have another question in the chat.
Good, I love it.
If you are currently pursuing certificates, but they won't be completed until graduation, and they are important for companies to know that you will have them, where do you include them on your resume?
Where do you include them? So I thought you were going to ask, do you include them? So yes, I'm glad you know that. Yes, you include them. I would include them in your education section. So I don't have a full resume here to show you, but the next section, let's say the next section was education, I would probably put Metropolitan State University or pursuing bachelor's in whatever, CIS, Metropolitan State University. When it comes to education, we don't put our years there like a job. I've been here since 2018. We just put your expected graduation. Employers care when you're going to graduate. So again, Metropolitan State University, expected graduation May 2021, pursuing bachelor's in, and then they know what you're studying. I take the similar approach to your certificate. Certificate in data systems, May 21 or August 21 or whenever it's expected. Because right there in your education, I've got it all together. You're going after your bachelor's, you're going after these certificates, and they're all going to be done about the same time. Great question. Yes, let people know you're learning that.
There's also a second part to that question. They want to include their honors thesis on the resume, but it wouldn't be completed for another semester.
For me, that depends in part where they're going. If they're going into education, that would be important. In fact, I'm giving you a resume style approach for some fields. For someone going to Europe, it's more common, or education, to have what's called a CV or curriculum vitae. That's a different approach, and they want to know what you've published in your research and all those things. So that's a little bit of a different discussion. If you're not going in to education as a field, but you're just kind of proud of it, I would maybe put it down towards the bottom. But if you're going into education, that's an important document to have, and you'd want to mention it.
There's another question that came out of that one. Would awards and certificates be equally helpful on a cover letter?
I really want to talk about some of the specifics. For a cover letter, and I had to really cut this down because we have limited time today, but if we have time at the end, I can bring up a slide about cover letters. We don't want to duplicate your resume. So if your awards and certificates are on there, great. Generally, approach I like for cover letters is a chance to tell me a little bit more about you, about why you want this job, to delve into examples of your work, things that aren't in those bullet points on your resume. So don't repeat the resume. I've got your resume. Tell me about you. In fact, a real simple way to start a resume is, I'm excited about this position, I'm applying for it, blah, blah, blah. But a better way, if it applies, is that just short story about what drew you to this field, about why you're passionate about it, about some experience you had, and now I want to do this. It's much more interesting reading, right? Then pick a couple of those top things that they want from you. In this case, it's this example of the social media. Say, I see that you want someone who has experience with social media marketing strategy. Let me tell you about my favorite example of that. So instead of just a bullet on the resume, walk me through the step. When I did a social media strategy for the Classroom to Career Hub at MSU Denver, I first looked at, did a SWOT analysis. And again, some of this terms, this jargon, know your audience. If you're talking to engineers, you can use engineering terms. If you're using the PR people or biology, you can use the terms. But I did a SWOT analysis and I found out where our strengths and weaknesses were. And then I applied a strategy to our target audience. Walk me through it and you really demonstrate that you know the material. So you start off with a good hook about why you care about this. You picked a key skill that you want, and instead of just saying you have it, you gave me an example of it. Pick another one, do it again. Tell me why you want to do it for me, right? I like to use bad examples, so let me use a bad analogy of dating, right? So if you just say, hey, do you want to go to a movie next week? Yeah, okay. But what if I said, hey, you have a great sense of humor, we have a lot of fun together, and I think we'd enjoy this comedy, That's a much nicer invitation, right? So tell me why you want to do it for my company. Show me you researched my company. Even if you never heard of this company until you applied, go to their website, find out something about them. Oh, I really like the work you do. And grab a quick example. This caught my eye and I'd be excited to be part of that. Does that help? So it was a long answer to a short question, but that's my general approach to cover letter, not just repeating what's in it.
That does help. Thank you. And Haley
Sure.
has a question of how personal should you get within the cover letter?
Do they have something in mind they feel comfortable sharing at this point?
Haley, if you want to unmute yourself or put it in the chat to elaborate for us, please.
I mean, like, if you want a job and you're passionate about it, like, how personal should you be? Like, is it unprofessional to talk about, like, I don't know, mental illness or stuff like that?
So first of all, again, I give that example of the story. So let's just say for engineers or industrial designers, hey, ever since I was a little kid, I found myself pulling things apart to see how they worked. And when I got older and found through, this class or this group at school that we could be the junior engineers and put things together, I knew that's what I wanted to do. That's kind of fun. That tells me about you and why you care about it. That's not too personal. If you've overcome something in your personal journey, if you can share it briefly, but that shows resilience and drive, that's not too much. You may not want to go into all your personal struggles, but if you can say, I worked my way through school with 2 jobs and classes, and so it took me longer than most, but I stayed with it because this is what I care about. That's not a bad story, and that's not overly personal. But yeah, just if those examples help, a little bit about yourself actually makes it a more effective cover letter, but we just don't want to go too much. So any others? I've got more with these good questions I wanted to get out of sharing, so let me see if I can share again without messing it up. And I think somehow I did mess it up. Are you guys seeing the whole thing? Evan, what are you seeing right now?
I am seeing just I'm seeing presentation and then like the taskbar. So you're just not in presenting mode, but it's at the beginning of the presentation.
Okay, let me go back and try again because I had it the right way somewhere. Yes, I have done this before, but it's just a different interface I'm getting used to. Thank you all for your patience, by the way. Are you now seeing the Steve Smith skills section again?
Yes.
Okay. Except I'm not, which is weird. So I'm going to find a way to work around. What are you seeing now?
Still seeing the Steve Smith skills slide.
Okay, looking for opportunities?
Yep.
Thank you, everybody. Again, I appreciate your patience. So we've done some research, but where do we find the internships? So one way is CareerLink. And if you haven't heard of that yet, that is our database for internships and jobs. And you can get to that through the Student Hub on the MSU Denver website. So again, just remember CareerLink, and you can go in there and search. And if you need help with that, the C2 Hub or calling or emailing our front desk, someone can help you with that. But I would never suggest you limit yourself to one resource. So you may have heard of some of the others I like to include. So Indeed.com, if you like working in the nonprofit world, there's coloradononprofits.org. There's even internships.com, that's pretty straightforward. LinkedIn.com has some jobs and internships in it, and there are others. So start with CareerLink, but definitely use other resources and don't just limit yourself to one. You can also look at industry-specific organizations. Do any of you here already know of a professional organization for your field? Find out, ask in your department, and they may have their own job and internship listings. You can also go to company websites. So we've done our research, we found out what we're interested in, we've gone to find out what companies do it, check out their website. And if you don't see it on CareerLink, and you don't see it on Indeed, and you don't see it on the company website, they may still have opportunities. You may just have to call, and that's called cold calling. And that just means a call without an implied invitation, like a job or an internship listing. But if you really want to work for this company, try it anyway. Call them up and say, hey, Evan, I really like your company, and I'm a student at MSU, and I'd like to intern. Do you offer that? You might be surprised. I actually talked my way into my first internship that way. And then there's networking. Just starting to get to know people in the field and getting to know other people out there. And you, just because you're talking and you're communicating, you hear about things. So all of these, use the websites, use the databases, check out the organizations for your field, go to the company websites, cold call if nothing else is happening, and network. So I want to talk about networking a little bit. Anybody uncomfortable or find the idea of networking daunting? Yeah, I see a nod. Good, thank you, Haley. So, yeah, it was uncomfortable for me when I was in college. I had to go talk about myself. That was always uncomfortable for me. And I had to try to explain why I would be good for an internship or a job when I'm just learning it. That was very uncomfortable for me and a little daunting, so I wasn't very good at it. And I want to help you out so that you do this very important skill, because so many things come out of networking. In fact, more jobs come from networking than from job listings. So this is a skill I do want you to develop. So here's some of my advice. For something like this, start with who you know already. That makes it easier, right? So you have friends, family, neighbors. I hope all of you do. Start with them. Here's my best advice. Start talking. Just make sure everyone knows what you're doing. Because you never know that a friend knows somebody who knows somebody, or their parent works in this field, or their neighbor. I was given this talk once in a class, and this aviation student said my neighbor across the street was a pilot. And I talked to him and got an internship. Love that. So talk to the people you know. All of you, your students, you have classmates and faculty, right? You may have classmates who've already had an internship somewhere. Ask them. When you're in a chat room for your class now, or maybe you're on some of these blogging assignments, just put the word out. Hey, anybody already had an internship? I'm looking. And you might get some good responses. And maybe Evans was good, and you can say, yo, tell me, who do I ask for, and can I use your name? And Haley's was bad. You go, oh, okay, let me write them down. I don't want to go there. You can learn a lot from your classmates. And your faculty, one of the many things I love about MSU is how many of our faculty still work or recently worked in the field. They've got connections. They know places. Plus, how many students have they taught? How many internships have they heard about? So definitely talk to those people. And then the Classroom to Career Hub where I work. We're here to help you with these things, to help you with tools and tactics and strategies. Those things are all available to you already, and I hope you know about them. And just start talking. But then we got to grow. We got to expand that connection. So we want to be purposeful now about going into the field you want to be in. So shadowing experiences, someone talked about earlier. This is great. Let's say you do hear about someone you talk to, they don't have an internship. Instead of saying, oh, okay, thanks, click, hang up, say, well, is there any way I could shadow you for a little while one day? Maybe they're open to that, and it gives you a little taste of the office or the work, and you get a chance to meet some people they work with, and your network's growing. Volunteer work. I've run into a lot of students who volunteer. I bet some of you do volunteer work. So there's two ways that volunteering can help you. You could always volunteer for a place you want to work with, and maybe you get to know some people that way. Or if you already volunteer at a place you care about, every nonprofit has a board of directors, and they intentionally pull that board of directors from different fields to improve their outreach, to get into more of the city. They might have someone on the board who works in the field you want to be in. And I guarantee you, because I've been on a board of a nonprofit, that if you came to me and said, hey, Mark, I volunteer at the Food Bank of the Rockies also, and I want to go into journalism, you bet I'd talk to you. We already have two things in common. We care enough about this organization, and you're going into the same field I am. So that's how volunteering can help you. Student clubs and professional organizations. So some of you may already know about a student club for your major. And sometimes those clubs will bring in speakers and bring in professionals. Boy, tap into those, start going to those meetings. In fact, be on the committee, join that club, and you're probably going to be connected more. Informational interviews. So again, you find out from a friend that they know somebody who does this work and they don't have something for you. Just say, hey, can we just talk about it for a while? I'd love your ideas on what's going on in the industry. It's called an informational interview. And it's a great way to learn about the field and get their advice on skills you have and how to make connections and how to get a job or an internship. Boy, really look for those informational interviews. And then you can network online through professional sites like LinkedIn. So those are some good ways to network. And just because I've had to adjust my screen, I've lost track. It looks like we have about 10 minutes. Is that right?
Yes, just about 10 minutes.
So let me see to go through. So networking, let's go through a checklist, make sure we're ready. Before you start networking, have that resume polished and ready to go. Because if you start to talk to people, they may say, hey, send me your resume. And you don't want to say, well, it's my waiting tables resume, or I don't really have one. Make sure you're good to go. Create an elevator pitch. And if you haven't heard that term, elevator pitch, just a short professional intro that says who you are and what you're about, what you're looking for. Again, remember to network with all those people, but if you're going to do all that, I do suggest keeping a tracking sheet.
Hey, hi there.
Yeah.
So I just had a question. My name is Abdisa.
Sure, go ahead.
On a short professional intro would be letter cover.
No, this is just something you would speak. You would say out loud. Picture yourself at a job fair or contacting someone for the first time. You want to be able to say, hi, I'm an engineering student at Metropolitan State University. I'm really interested in mechanical engineering. In fact, I really like this kind of work. And I graduate, this May, and I'm looking for internship experience. Short, professional introduction to who you are and what you're about. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question. But I started to say you want to keep a tracking sheet because maybe you send emails or you leave voicemail messages and people don't get back to you right away. Keep a list of who you've contacted, what company they're with, their phone and email, and when you left the message. And that way, if they get back to you a week or two later, you can go back to your list and say, oh yeah, I really wanted to talk to that person. Another one is seek out those informational interviews. And if you get one, go in prepared. Have your resume, or in this world, maybe you've already sent it to them electronically. Have questions ready. So you come out of that informational meeting knowing you got your questions answered. If it is a face-to-face meeting, have your resume and questions in a nice pad folio. It's a notepad with a nice cover. And don't be embarrassed about pulling that out. You look professional, you look prepared. Know your why. Someone may say, well, why are you interested in this field? Or why do you want to do it with us? have answers to those questions. And then check your online profile. If you're in a portfolio field, you may want a website, make sure it's all good. If you have a LinkedIn profile, make sure it's ready and up to date. So the credit process, I want to make sure we get through this because this gets back to one of the earlier questions off the top. Well, what do I do? So we've talked about research, getting your resume together, interviewing, doing all these things. But once you have the internship, here's what you need to do. Contact your department. So find out again, just check in with them because some of them want to talk to you before you even start your application. They want to know what it's about and give you pre-approval to apply. That doesn't mean you're ready to register, it just means you're ready to apply. They may assign you faculty or ask you to find a faculty. So find out who that person is. Make sure you're meeting the credit policies. Again, the deadlines and the hours and all those things. And learning objectives. So to get credit through a class, you're going to have learning objectives. And your department may ask you to come up with some on your own. Your department may have a pre-made list of them. Make sure you know what's expected and that you're meeting those objectives. And some may have a list that you choose from, but find out in advance because as part of the application, you're going to add learning objectives and you want to be ready. So when you've talked to your department, got the internship, you talk to your department, now call or email the C2 Hub. And that's the Classroom to Career Hub, if you haven't heard that acronym yet. And we're going to direct you to your online application, which is also in CareerLink. And you're going to be asked to enter the internship site, your supervisor information, a description of your duties, your learning objectives, your start date, a bunch of things. You're going to put in the basic information for the internship. And then that application still has to go to your employer to sign off on, and they add a little information. And it goes back to your department, where they're probably going to add assignments. So in addition to all the work you're doing at the internship, your department may have assignments to help tie it back to the curriculum. Now that that's all approved, your department will either register you or they're going to lift the hold on the internship so you can register yourself. Most internships should have a hold in place so you can't register until all this stuff is done. So that's another thing to find out from your department when you've got everything approved. Do they register you or do they lift the hold and you register? Any questions on that? Okay. So I want to talk to you about all the ways the Classroom to Career Hub can help you. Because again, I hope we've convinced you this is a good idea. I've gone over some tips, but as you get going, you may need a little more support, and we have support for you. So first of all, we can help you with CareerLink and how to navigate it and how to search for things in there. We also have something called Vault. If you get into this program called Vault, it's a good way to research companies, but it also has great tips, and you can sign up for a daily newsletter that'll give you tips on interviewing, working remotely, how to work with, interact with different people at the job, a bunch of great job-related articles. We have additional job boards to help you find. It's also a great way to find out if employers are coming to campus or we're having job fairs where you can meet students, employers on campus or in this day remotely. We can help you with list of professional organizations so you can find out those good organizations to join. We can help develop a strategy to help you keep on task and keep progressing with your internship or job search. Help you research the employers. And again, tips on resumes, cover letters, interviewing, all sorts of things, because interviewing is intimidating too, right? We could all use some help going into an interview. So here's how you reach the Classroom to Career Hub. The phone number right now is probably going to be leaving a message and someone will get back to you. We are monitoring that voicemail. The best way right now under this, under COVID is probably the email. And you can email us at c2hub@msudenver.edu. So thanks for putting up with my scratchy voice today. We have time for questions. If you have a question, don't be shy. Someone else probably has the same question.
I had a question about when interviewing and like people are asking questions, what's like is there like a range of how long your response should be? Like is 5 minutes too long? Like, or like, you know, per question?
Great question. No, I would say don't give me the 10-second answer or the 5-minute answer. I need something in between. But what's more important than the exact length is answer the question and give an example. I think that's a good strategy for a question interview. Answer the question and give me an example. And sometimes I find myself just trying to pull the example from someone. So I'm going to pick on Evan because I know him and we're on groups together. So let's say I'm interviewing Evan and I say, tell me about your experience working with students at MSU. And he says, well, I've worked with the peers for a couple of years. Okay. But he could tell me so much more. He could tell me about how he grew in the program, what kind of counseling he did, what kind of peers he worked with, and you don't want to go on, but especially if he pulled out one of his most rewarding experiences. For instance, I can remember this student who was ready to quit. They were just facing so many challenges at home and at work, and we were able to talk and find a way to reduce their class load, but keep them on task to graduate. That's now a great example, and it also tells me a lot more about Evan and his approach. So answer the question and give an example. And I'd say you go in an interview, you'll often have 10 to 12 questions in a half hour. And with time for introductions and for you to ask questions, that maybe leaves you a minute and a half to answer a question. So I don't want you to practice and time your answers because I don't want you to sound stilted, but answer the question, give me a short, good example. And you can do a lot in a minute. Who else? Come on, fire away. For the people who had questions going in, did I answer your questions? If not, this is a great time to remind me. I wrote some of those down.
I know we had a question about internships during COVID at the beginning.
Thank you.
Would you be able to touch on that more?
Yes, thank you. And we'll end up with that because I want to respect everyone's time. So I've given you a lot of examples. You can tell I talk about being in the office and in the workplace and all these things. We're not there now. Here's what I'm hearing from employers because I want you to know this. So employers have when this all happened, they're trying to figure out how to save their own business. How do they keep going? So they had to put off internships for a while. So a lot of companies stopped doing interns, and if they had them, they sent them home. It was a health hazard. There are all sorts of reasons you're all familiar with. And now I see some businesses starting, now that they've figured out how to work remotely, they're looking at how to do internships remotely. So it just may take a little more digging, but there are businesses doing internships. So dig, look, cold call. I read a great article in a national paper once where a student, hearing how tough this would be, had just started writing and calling a bunch of places, and she ended up with multiple offers. She reached out to 50 or 60 companies. Now that may sound like a lot, but once you get there, doesn't matter. It took 50 calls. She had 3 or 4 offers. Right here at MSU, we had someone in our office who was having trouble finding internships, and we encouraged her to cold call. And she was much more comfortable doing the database stuff behind the keyboard. It wasn't as personal. She wasn't finding anything. She started cold calling. She got 2 internship offers. She came in so excited one day, and I asked her later, how many calls did you make? She said, oh, at least 30. And the way she said that, I thought it was probably 40. So it just may take more digging now, but do it and put yourself out there. But here's another key. In addition to the skills that you bring to the table, that you're studying your field, you've taken classes, you've done projects, please mention your remote working skills. We're working on Zoom right now. You may have classes in Teams. You may have had to share things to a cloud server. Make sure you're including those things in your resume these days. Make sure when you talk to people on a cold call, you mention your ability to work remotely, that you've been doing classes now for 6 months remotely, and you've been able to do assignments and study and do all these things. Keep digging, mention those remote tools, and then stay positive, because if they still haven't figured it out, just say, I understand. Can I check in again next month for spring? Because I'm really excited about your company and I'd like to keep checking in. You're not asking them to tell you because they don't have time to do that. But you're working on a timeline, and you can say, when would be a good time to check in? And if they say, well, actually give us till the first of the year, great. If you don't mind, I'm going to give you a call January 4th. Now you've set up a positive approach. You're a solution to a problem. You're bringing skills to the table they need, not only in that industry, but to work remotely. And just one last word on that. You're going to be graduating in a remote work world, so doing an internship remotely would just solidify your ability to do that. Abdisa, looks like you were popping in to maybe ask something.
We just had, it's related to, as he said, COVID-19. So it's like a conflict between making a better, graduation and then, making a better grade. That kind of conflict, having, into internship or, going out the Pacific real world of career, that is difficult for us a little bit. What would you think?
You were breaking up a little bit, so if I understood all your questions, let me try to restate it and you tell me if I'm not wrong. You're just worried that, again, with COVID, things are more difficult. It's harder to get that experience. Was that the heart of it?
Yeah.
So again, businesses are getting into a rhythm now where they're working remotely. And if they were used to having interns and they haven't had them for a while, I bet most of them have had talks about how do we revive our internship program. And I'm going to stop for just a second. This was scheduled to go till noon. So if some of you have other obligations or classes, please feel free to go. We won't think you're rude. But for those of you who have more questions, I'm willing to stay a little longer. So, but for those of you who are just kind of hanging on and don't want to be rude, know that we're not going to think bad of you. If you still have questions, hang about and I'll try to answer them. So Abdisa, back to your question. Yes, it's harder now. It's harder to go to school. And maybe some of you planned on graduating December. And you've had to stretch it out to May. Or you're doing some outreach and it's just taken longer. Or the example I just gave where you reach out to someone and they're interested, they're just not ready yet. First bit of advice is stay with it, persevere, keep trying. Again, be upbeat and positive, and then be willing to check back with them and look at the next semester if you need to. But here's the thing, when it's all said and done, you'll have been through a tougher experience. And while it's not easy, it's going to help employers see that you are capable. Again, you may graduate in a world that's still working remotely, and you finish school remotely, you got an internship remotely, I'm going to feel better about hiring you to work remotely. So here's the other thing, and I'll say this because I get passionate about MSU students. And just so you know, I was first gen. I changed schools, I changed majors. I was on the 6.5-year plan. Don't be embarrassed if it's taking you 5 or 6 or 7 years. Don't think, oh, I'm bad or I did something wrong. You worked. You worked your way through school. You helped your family while you did it, and you stayed with it to graduate. These aren't things to be embarrassed about or ashamed about. You be proud of it, and employers are going to see that. Okay? So you stick with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And come see us at the C2 Hub. We'll have some suggestions for you. Come see us, sorry, but call us, email us, we'll set up a virtual meeting or something. I'll say one more thing for the people there, because this happens. Maybe later today or tomorrow you think, oh, I wish I'd asked this. Please feel free. No one's going to think you're dumb, and the C2 Hub is here to help you. The people who helped organize this meeting today will help you. So if you think of your questions later, you can contact us and reach out and we'll help you. Anybody else?
There were 2 questions still left in the chat. One of them was, have you seen an increase or decrease of internships with the pandemic? And the other one was, would it be a good idea to put the acceptance letter for the internship that they weren't able to go to because of COVID on the resume?
Let me take them in order, and I may ask you to on the second one again. So first, yes, I've seen a decline. Originally, a lot of people dropped off because they were sending their own workers home. So they couldn't have interns. And then it was figuring out first, how do I keep my business alive? And now I see more bringing back interns. So I'm seeing it improve. And it's much like employment during COVID itself. We saw a lot of people lose jobs. And now some of those jobs are coming back. I'm seeing the same thing in internships. It may vary a little bit by field. So again, great to talk to people in your department about it, but I am seeing it improve and I'm encouraged by that. For the second one, if they were accepted, and let's say they started last spring and then had to go home, I would say definitely put it on the resume. I did this internship for 2.5 months. And if anybody ever asked, well, that seems short, why? And you said, well, COVID, they would understand. They certainly understand. If you're saying what I put on the resume that I was accepted for one I didn't do, probably not.
Thank you.
Sure. It's good to see some of your faces. Dan, thanks for turning on, and see Nicole and Sheila, thank you. Is it Sheila or Shalaya?
It's Sheila. You got it right.
Okay. I see Sabrina, Evan, I've had fun making fun of, that's good. If you don't know Evan, he's a great guy. I'm always glad when I see him on a committee or in a meeting. He's funny too. All right, it sounds like everything. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I hope I've helped you. If I've just been confusing or mumbled a little bit because of my voice today, again, just reach out to the C2 Hub. A lot of good people there to help the peers. We have a lot of good peers. I think some of you, many of you right now are peers. You're learning. Thank you for spreading the word, for being willing to share with your classmates and help others succeed. That's what I'm rewarded by, so I'm thrilled to see you guys doing that too. You have a great time. Stay safe and healthy, okay?
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Evan.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Bye,
And
thank you.
yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us. That concludes our event. If you tuned in a little late, we will have the recording up on our YouTube page, so you can always watch it there, and your peer mentor will be reaching out with the link for this as well. And if you have not done so, for those that are still here, please fill out the survey and the sign-in sheet for the event. They can be found a little up at the top of the chat, the two links. But thank you again for everyone who joined us. We really appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day, and we will see you again.